History tells the story of the world and of our lives. Sometimes that history goes bump in the night. Broadcasting from the center of Oddity and the supernatural in Central Florida, it's the History Goes Bump podcast.
Hello, you spooktacular people. Welcome to this 562nd episode of the History Goes Bump podcast. Ghost Tours for the Theater of the Mind. I'm your host, Diane.
And this is Kelly.
Kelly, on this episode, we're going to be featuring a museum and old home in Savannah, Georgia, one of our favorite cities.
It is one of our favorite cities.
Andrew Low House. And we're going to be joined by a couple of other podcasters who are tour guides at the house and tour guides in Savannah. And they're going to share some incredible history and even better experiences from this location. Before we get into that, we want to welcome into the spooktacular crew, Lynn and Rebecca.
Thank you so much for joining our Facebook group.
And now this moment in Oddity.
The moment in Oddity was suggested by Ruth Dempsey. Crowley Lake Reservoir, located in the eastern Sierras in California, was completed in 1941. Shortly thereafter, strange columns were discovered on the eastern shore of the lake. They are said to remind one of Moorish temples, with the columns rising 20 feet in height and their tops forming arches. Various theories as to how the columns came to be have been pondered over the years. Geologists from UC Berkeley analyzed the Crowley columns, using several methods to try to solve the mystery. The composition of the columns were found to consist of minerals that are fairly impervious to erosion. The area is believed to have suffered an enormous volcanic eruption that was greater than 2,000 times that of Mount St. Helens back in May of 1980. It is surmised that the eruption created the Long Valley caldera, which surrounds the reservoir. The Crowley columns, however they were formed, are majestic and unique, and they certainly are odd.
This history podcast is haunted.
And now, this month in history.
In the month of November, on the 1st in 1776, Junipero Serra founded Mission San Juan Capistrano in Orange County, California. San Juan Capistrano was the 7th mission established out of the 21 built by the Spanish in California. The building of the mission initially began in October 1775. However, due to a Kumeyaay war party attacking Mission San Diego, the soldiers at San Juan Capistrano were ordered back to San Diego and the priests had to go with them. The purpose of the Spanish missions in California was to expand the territories of Spain as well as to spread Christianity to the indigenous Ahashiman of the area. The Spanish brought new ideas, technology, beasts of burden, and livestock who multiplied and devastated the indigenous plants and animals of the California region. The Spanish also unintentionally brought diseases that were uncommon to the native people, causing widespread outbreaks of pneumonia, tuberculosis, measles, and syphilis. With the arrival of the Spanish, the indigenous people were forced to find new food sources, and they were offered the option of joining the missions. To do so meant changing everything about their lives. They were required to change their culture, language, religion, clothing, food, and the list goes on. From 1770 to 1830, it said that the native population declined by 74% due to these factors. The mission had begun its downswing in 1812, and in 1845, the governor of Alta California, Pio Pico, sold Mission San Juan Capistrano to John Forster, who was the governor's brother-in-law. The mission became a private ranch for the Forster family for the next 20 years. In 1850, California officially became a state, and Catholic Bishop Joseph Alemany petitioned to have all the missions returned to the Catholic Church. Today, Mission San Juan Capistrano serves as a museum, and the Sarah Chapel inside the property is used by the Mission Parish.
The Andrew Low House is located in Savannah, Georgia, and is a beautifully restored 19th century home that sits in the heart of Savannah's historic district. A sculpted and well-cared-for garden leads guests to a door that opens into a part of the history of a Scottish immigrant, Andrew Low, who left his mark on the city, and also the woman who founded the Girl Scouts, his daughter-in-law, Juliette Gordon Low. Now in the afterlife, it seems that both of these individuals are still connected to the house. On this episode, we are joined by our friends Bailey and Lizzie, who are not only tour guides in Savannah, but they've had their own paranormal experiences in the Andrew Low house.
Kelly, Bailey, and Lizzie joined us on our Dixie House investigation, and they are joining us on this episode. They're tour guides in Savannah, Georgia, and they also host the podcast, No More Podcast, which is spelled KNOWMORE. How are you two ladies doing?
Good. How are you? We've been waiting for this.
Yeah, what the listeners don't know is that we had it scheduled once, and then we had Hurricane Helene, and so we had to cancel. Yeah. And then we scheduled it again, and then we had Hurricane Milton and had to cancel again.
It's been rough for both of us.
Yeah. Yeah. So it was kind of like crossing our fingers. Do we dare set another date, or are we going to have another hurricane?
Mm-hmm. It was just luck of the draw.
Yeah, I'll say. So both of you have been tour guides in Savannah, Georgia. Bailey, how long have you been doing that for?
Since I moved down here, so about 3 years. It was the first job I had, and I tried quitting it. I worked at a hardware store, but it just kept calling me back.
Nice.
You're
Love
very
it.
good at storytelling.
Thank you.
And how about you, Lizzie? How long have you been doing tour guiding?
Same as Bailey. I started once I moved down here to Savannah, and I've been doing it for a little over 2 years. So,
where are you originally from, Lizzie?
I'm originally from East Tennessee.
Okay.
So the land, quite literally the land of Dolly Parton.
Oh, nice.
I actually used to work at Dollywood. Yeah.
And how about you, Bailey? Where are you originally from?
I'm from Augusta.
Okay.
So still Georgia, but
so still Georgia.
Yeah.
That's why we got a little bit of the accents going on there.
I know. Yeah. We got a little bit of like a Texas draw, not Texas, Tennessee draw. And then I've heard I don't have an accent. So it kind of just depends on your perspective.
Wow, I don't know who would tell you that you don't have an accent, because you definitely
some random. So it's the guests that always have a thicker accent than me.
Gotcha. And I forgot, Lizzie, that you actually were from the Dollywood area, because I remember talking with you about that when we got together for the live show. So it's great to see you guys again.
Mm-hmm.
So the place we're going to be talking about is the Andrew Low house. And I know that I've been by it, but I've actually never been inside of it. This is a really unique looking house. It's kind of an Italianate style. So it's kind of like a box with a flat roof.
Yeah.
So it's very different.
Yeah. And I'll go into like describing it for the listeners, because I know like when you're listening, you might be driving and you don't have a photo ready. So I'll do my best to describe it, but it was my favorite house in Savannah for a very long time.
Very cool. Well, I know that one of the people who is connected to it was the founder of the Girl Scouts. So I'm looking forward to hearing more about her as well.
Oh, yeah. We did a whole episode about Juliette Gordon Low. I work at her birthplace. She's one of my favorite all-time top 10 favorite women in history.
Well, very cool. And she mostly is from the Savannah area, right?
Yeah, born and raised.
Wow, very cool. All right. Well, I'll let you go ahead and let us know what is going on with this Andrew Low house.
Okay. I will give a disclaimer. Sometimes I talk a little fast, but I just get excited, so bear with me.
You're good.
I wrote this all out in a script format so I could read it perfectly, but I do need to give a quick thank you to the Andrew Low house and staff for letting us cover this topic. If you want to learn more about the Andrew Low house and want to visit Savannah, go to theandrewlowhouse.com and you can find the hours of operation, address, and any other information you might need. But thank you once again to those lovely people for allowing us to talk about the historic home and the lives that lived in it. I also want to give our thanks to our friends who let us share their information. I just wanted to get that off the bat first. This is a very specific home in Savannah. which, as y'all know, is where we live. But this house was involved in my first paranormal experiences, but also my first job that I had moving down to Savannah. During the day, the home is a museum run by the Andrew Low staff. At night, the museum is open only for guests of ghosts and gravestones. That is where I had my experiences. But today's a special episode because we get to do it with y'all. So, like we suggested, it's going to be talking about the Andrew Low house, but there's more than just the daytime history. There's so many other aspects that really make this house really cool. So I thought, what better way to bring our two podcasts together by showing a little bit of history, but also the stuff that goes bump in the night at this beautiful house. It's a perfect combination. Andrew Low was born in Kincardineshire, County, Scotland, on July 20th, 1812. His parents were in the grocery business in Brechin, Scotland. It's over there in Scotland, lovely area. Their names are William and Catherine Reed Low. At the age of 17, Andrew Low moved to Savannah to work for his uncle, also named Andrew Low, and he worked in the dry goods and cotton factory business. Our Andrew Low quickly showed that he knew what he was doing, and in 1839, he would get full responsibility of his uncle's property and businesses in Savannah, but also in Liverpool. In 1844, Andrew would marry his first love, Sarah Cecil Hunter, who was described, and this is very beautiful, a remarkably happy, amiable, and rational character, which that's just a very creative way of describing somebody, I think.
Yeah.
After being married, as this was one thing to do at the time, the two lovers quickly started making a family. They had one son, Andrew, and two daughters, Amy and Harriet, or Harriet was also known as Hattie. This family was quickly growing, as you can tell, so Andrew decided he needed a proper house. He bought 2 lots in Lafayette Square and would hire New York architect John Norris to build and design his house. At this point, Andrew Low was one of the wealthiest men in Savannah. No expense was too much. However, sadly, in 1848, the son of Andrew would die at 4 years old, and the following year in 49, Sarah Low would die after a miscarriage. I can't imagine what Andrew Low was going at the time, but he was not alone. Sarah's sister Elizabeth would move into the house and help with the family, as the fathers back then didn't really involve themselves with the family too much. So at least he has someone to rely on.
Sure.
Also, another disclaimer, if you hear a squeaky toy in the background, my dog is happy that we're here. She is having a calming treat, so she should kick in a second. She's just really happy to be here.
Yeah, I'm just holding on to it. That way she doesn't go.
Now, things weren't all bad for Andrew. He would find love again. In 1854, Andrew would marry his second wife, Mary Cowper Stiles. Mary was described as a very beautiful, but was also a genuine outdoors girl who was safe to raid and shoot better than her brothers, which I love that right off the bat.
Exactly. Yeah. Very cool.
She was not your average woman, but as you can tell, she was even cooler. Her and Andrew were involved in multiple trips overseas. One example being in 1861 to England on behalf of the Confederacy. Mary one time hid copies of secret documents in her clothing on a return trip. She was caught, but she escaped arrest. See? Pretty cool lady. Did you know that?
Definitely.
Yeah, it was pretty, she's, excuse my language, a badass lady.
Hell yeah.
You're good. A spy there.
Yeah.
A spy who can shoot better than her brothers.
Yeah. The two would be married for 9 years, and during that time they had 6 kids, 4 who survived. There is Catherine, Katie is Catherine, Mary, William, Willie, but I call him Mackie. That was his middle name because it's easier to just figure out who is who later on in the story. And they would also have Jesse. They were one big happy family. Yet sadly, things did not stay that way. Just like his first wife, Sarah Hunter, Mary would have pregnancy complications and would pass in 1863. Her mother, Eliza, would move into the home to help with the kids, but I can't really begin to fathom just what Andrew Low was going through yet again. Like, losing one wife is terrible, but having the same thing happen to your second wife is heartbreaking.
Yeah, if you get married again, you're like, I'm not getting anybody pregnant because...
I'm done with I'm probably done with marriage, honestly.
Yeah.
And I think he kind of was. In 1867, Andrew moved the family to Leamington Spa, England. And from this point, he would spend most of his time abroad, but would travel once a year to Savannah during the winter months. Because, let's be honest, that's the best time to visit Savannah.
That's true.
Which a lot of tourists do. And Andrew would eventually pass the age of 74 in England in 1886. But his remains would be buried in Laurel Grove Cemetery between his wives and surrounded by some of his kids. I think that just kind of shows that Savannah still felt like a home to him, which I think is very sweet. He did leave behind a very generous will, with some things going to his remaining family, some societies, and some places focused on helping orphans. But all the non-family things were focused in Savannah. He also left $300, which today is like a little bit of $10,000, to Mr. Millage, our next focus. Mr. Millage is one of my favorite people to talk about. Thanks to census records, tax digests, deeds, letters, and Savannah's registers of free people of color, we know that Andrew Low managed his house with both free and enslaved people. In 1850, the U.S. Census, the only free inhabitants listed were himself, his 2 daughters, and his sister-in-law. At this time, the enslaved staff includes 6 black men and 5 women, with 3 being marked as mixed. No names were listed. However, in 1860, the U.S. Census marks those who were freed as Andrew, Mary, Amy, Hattie, Katie, and Mary, as well as 2 free people of color, marked mixed, where they were Cecilia Anderson and Grace Taylor. In 1844, Uncle Andrew Low purchased an enslaved man named Tom from Mr. Woolbridge for $398.92. The Andrew Low we're talking about now, the big man, he would later inherit Tom. This is believed to be the Thomas Millage I mentioned earlier. Mr. Millage, as we're used to calling him, would marry Mosiana, also an enslaved woman, but would later be freed just like her husband and become servants of the Low house. These 2 had 3 children, William, Thomas Jr., and Mary. Mr. Millage was very well respected, often going to England with Andrew or being the sole person in charge of the house when Andrew was away. These 2 were best friends in the sense. They trusted each other. Mr. Millage would die in 1886, having served with the Forest City Light Infantry and was a Freemason. My favorite part is that his obituary noted that he had the respect of both white and colored people. So this man was very well respected.
Very cool.
But as much as I love Mr. Millage, I love his wife a little bit more. She is so cool. So Mosiana Millage was 20 years younger than her husband, but she was the cook for both Mackie and Juliette Gordon Low. It is believed Mosiana learned her cookings from Cecilia Anderson, the other enslaved lady the freed lady, as she too was a cook, and Cecilia's time seemed to overlap with Mosiana's at the house. So it's very possible, if not downright a fact, the 2 cooked together. This is all very important because Mosiana not only cooked in Savannah, but also when the Gordon Low family combined, went abroad. Have y'all ever wondered how England got Southern food? Like why they cook like fried chicken and stuff?
Well,
Yeah, I guess that would make sense.
It's possibly just because of Miss Mosiana.
Wow.
that's
She's
amazing.
she's credited with teaching Southern cooking to the famous English cook Rosa Lewis, who later became famous for her Southern cooking in London. It's so fascinating that a young little lady in Savannah could be the reason that a whole country cooks a certain way.
Sure.
Yeah,
I think
absolutely.
whenever I get a chance to mention Mosiana, whether on tours or at the museum, people are so blown away by her. And I'm like, yes, that's what she deserves. She's so fascinating.
Well, and what I've always loved too, and I think I'd heard about this in Savannah when I was doing a tour, is that a lot of what we consider the Southern cooking is what they ate downstairs, how we have the upstairs and the downstairs. So the
Right.
downstairs would eat the good stuff, the fried chicken and everything. And then, of course, they had the elegant meals upstairs. And eventually that's going to go upstairs because I think the people who were upstairs went, they're eating some good stuff down there.
That looks pretty good on display. What is that? That makes sense because the elegance of Savannah, they were most likely trying to copy the Queen Victoria's style and what she ate. But then if you smell some really good food cooking downstairs, you might want to try it.
Exactly.
I actually never heard that, but that makes total sense.
That's a lot of sense. Yeah.
People visit the Andrew Low house for many reasons. But one reason they visit that continues the history and makes the history to this day is the house's ties to Girl Scouting. Remember William Mackie Low, Mackie as I call him? Well, he married a woman named Juliette, who I briefly mentioned. She's the same woman who founded the Girl Scouts in 1912, Juliette Gordon Low. I could talk a lot about her, but lucky for us, we've already done an episode all about her. So if you want to learn about her, just listen to that episode. But her connection to Mackie is very important. The 2 met and quickly fell head over heels for each other, and they really wanted to get married, but their respective families said no. It's important to know at this point, Mackie was irresponsible and childish. He came from a lot of money and never had to work hard, which was the exact opposite of the man the Gordon family wanted for their daughter, which is understandable. And it still happens to this very day. I hear that a lot too. But Andrew Low didn't approve either. Juliette would write letters to Mackie for years, but they would never reach Mackie Low. But we can't really blame Andrew. I mean, as we know, he dealt with a lot of grief and heartbreak, losing 2 wives, a son, and a best friend, all within a few years of each other. it's pretty easy to assume that maybe he didn't want his son to experience similar heartbreak. That's what I personally believe. Plus, even though the Gordons were wealthy, and they were very wealthy, they weren't low-level wealthy. And it might look bad if Mackie married a girl of lower wealth. As terrible that it is, that was the time period. There's also the idea if he married Juliette, he would be stuck in America away from his father. And, families like to stick close to each other. Andrew just said, wait a year. See if you still like each other, see if you're compatible, and then maybe y'all can get married. Andrew passed away in 1886. We said that. The same year he said to wait a year was the year he passed. Well, the two lovers got married 6 months later. They did not even go.
Hey, we don't have to wait.
She said, you're out of the picture. You said you didn't want to be here. We're getting married. They would get married December 21st, 1886. And since neither of them had a job, they were free to go where they pleased. They often hung out with Mackie's close friend, the Prince of Wales.
Oh, just a close friend. Yeah.
Yeah, just, your best friend. Nothing important or anything.
It's like, my best friend, the Prince of Wales.
Yeah, no. It's bragging rights. I hate to say it, but things weren't perfect, as Mackie often let Juliette alone when he went out and partied. By 1888, Juliette learned more about her husband, especially that his money often got in the way of their marriage. As time would pass, he would spend more and more time away from her. The two never had kids, with a handful of reasons being the reason, but no one really knows. Yet things would shift dramatically for Juliette and Mackie. Enter Anna Bateman, Mackie's other lady. Yeah.
Uh-oh.
Dun, dun, dun.
Yeah, I love when I'm telling the story, I just kind of build it up and people are so excited to hear what's next. And then I drop the bombshell on them and you just see the faces drop. It's so great.
Oh no.
Yeah, it's my favorite part of doing tours. Now, Juliette probably had no idea who this lady was in 1889, nor how dangerous she would be in her marriage. But somewhere along the line, it became obvious that this just wasn't a friend of Mackie's. They were significantly more. It became apparent what Miss Anna Bateman's true intentions were when she walked into the Wellsburn house, their shared mansion, January 1901. She kind of looked like she owned the place, and Juliette did not like that.
I bet not.
Yeah, this actually breaks.
This is my house.
Yeah,
no, you
excuse me, who are you? This part breaks my heart. Juliette once wrote to her father explaining that she now saw Mackie's true intentions and that she wished to divorce him. Writing that, and this is the part that breaks me, I feel as if my life was a nice clean garment which was being dragged through the mud.
Uh-oh.
Oh.
It's
sad.
yeah. And Juliette was an amazing woman, and it breaks my heart she had to go through that. But after being married for 19 years, divorce seemed like the best option, especially for a situation like this. However, Juliette saw divorce as morally wrong and worried that it would cause both issues for both of their statuses. Plus, there were some factors that had to be played out. She would have to prove he deserted her, committed adultery, or was cruel. None of this seemed right. Additionally, there would also be a 2-year waiting period just for the desertion part. During that time, she would have to rely on him as the two weren't divorced yet, just separated, and she would still need his financial help, which who knows how helpful he would be with how irresponsible he was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She would also need him to agree to it. So it's a pretty crappy situation. Cheating on the Juliette Gordon Low. I know at this point, she had not invented Girl Scouts yet, but the idea that she's this sweet lady is kind of heartbreaking.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Cheating is wrong regardless, is what I'm trying to say. But
Yeah.
Mackie wasn't hiding the fact he was cheating. It was pretty obvious and people knew about it. But there's more drama. If y'all thought it was crazy, it gets crazier. All good things come to an end. June 8th, 1905, Mackie Low died of a seizure. Years of heavy drinking caught up with him, and a divorce would go through, but technically along the lines of a separation, as the 2-year waiting period wasn't up. Juliette's only regret regarding him was that he never changed her friends' opinions. So she still thought very highly of him, which is, I still don't think highly of him to this day.
No.
No. That's honestly probably the only semi-nice thought she had about him, because he didn't make it easy for her.
Mm-hmm.
Mackie Low was buried in Wimberpool with Anna Bateman. Supposedly, I don't know how true this is. It's kind of up to debate. But he may have been married with Anna Bateman's love letters across his heart. Not even his own wives, which is
Wow.
downright despicable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If that is actually true, I hate it. If it's not true, then I'm glad it's not. His will, however, was very generous. Juliette will receive the Andrew Low house, the Wellsburn mansion, his London house, and along with about $25,000 a year. That's almost about $1 million today.
Oh, good.
That's really nice of him.
Yeah.
It didn't go to Juliette.
Oof.
It would go to Anna. All
Wow.
of it.
Wow.
Juliette's attorneys would have fixed it, and she received a decent amount of money. She did not receive the Wellsburn mansion and went to a friend, and she received the Andrew Low house status for certain. She would still get an allowance from her father, but at this point, she would be able to live comfortably and happily. Anna still received a pretty decent amount, though, so still sucks. But Mackie Low was a jerk, and he kind of always was that way. I wish she had seen it sooner.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I like to put it, he was the rotten apple of the bunch. I mean, he grew up in a wealthy parts of England where money talked, people stabbed each other in the back, and scandals were frequent, just like the parties. That was Mackie's cup of tea. His siblings, though, I've never heard a bad thing about them. So it's kind of just like he literally was the bad apple of the bunch.
Yeah. Black sheep.
Black sheep.
Yeah. The corrupt sheep.
Yeah. And I mean, she knew that he wasn't grown up, and what really shows a lot about her character is she was giving him the
It's all the
benefit
good
of the
in
doubt
people.
that he would get there, and he
Mhm.
just didn't do it.
Because even when they dated, she still knew he partied a little bit, but I
Mhm.
think she's like, he's going to change for me. Once we get
Yeah.
married, it'll be different.
There's a lot
and
of
it
women
just-
that think that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I hate that, but
Yeah.
that's why I love telling Juliette's story, because there's a lot we can learn, even
Sure.
from like her romance life. But it is important to note that after Mackie's death, the Andrew Low house was briefly used as apartments, but eventually that stopped and Juliette used it as her own home, eventually passing away in the low bedroom, in the same bed that her mother-in-law passed away on many years before, January 17th, 1927, of breast cancer.
And now a little break for a word about one of our sponsors.
So that's the history. But y'all have seen this house, but the listeners haven't. So I'm going to kind of set the scene. In 1847, Andrew bought 2 lots on the west side of Lafayette Square. But crazy enough, it only cost about $3,000, which I don't know if that was per square or just both, but that doesn't seem too bad.
No.
We
No.
could have it all. If
Yeah.
if it'll just crash, we could have it. I'm sorry.
If we could take the
No,
money
you're-
we have now and go back in time.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
That same year, he hired John Norris to design and build the home, and it would be completed in 1849. So here's how it looks. It's a 3-story residence, which includes a raised basement, a surrounding dry moat, and covered in scored stucco. Typical of the time period, it is a blend of revival styles and especially influenced by Greek architecture. The front entrance hosts 2 nearly life-size cast iron lion sculptures guarding a brownstone staircase. They sit on either side. There's columns on either side of the doorways. The doors are massive and gorgeous shades of brown. On the main level, there are tall windows with dark green shutters and tiny little porches that accent each window. There are also shorter windows on the second floor with the same dark green shutters but no porches. In front of the house is a gorgeous garden surrounded by a cast iron gate. I actually have a photo I'll send to y'all so y'all can post. I could really go into detail, but that would make this episode so much longer than it already is. But if you step inside the house, there's an enclosed porch, which today is the gift shop. But once you step inside the house, you're taken away. First of all, and I mean this lovingly, it smells like a really good antique shop.
Okay.
Like that.
Very nice.
So, yeah.
Yeah.
Like it's the ones you know you're going to find something really good inside. And as you enter, to the right, there's a tall staircase, and to the left is some furniture before a door opens up. This is the informal parlor. Next to this room, separated by sliding doors, is the formal parlor room, which holds a pianoforte, which, according to me, apparently only 3 of them exist in the world.
Oh, wow.
And one of them is like in something to do with London, like a very high up castle, or like
Buckingham Palace.
Buckingham Palace. That's where it's at.
Yeah.
And one is in the Andrew Low house, which is crazy. They're so lucky.
And then the third one is actually in the Smithsonian as well.
There you go.
Oh, you're kidding. I mean,
Wow.
that's like pretty amazing. It's like
Yeah.
Yeah.
the other 2
And
are in major
it-
places.
It has
Yeah.
some spookiness to it too. Yeah. At home, and finally the one I believe is in Buckingham Palace. So I did write it. I'm glad I
Yeah.
did that. Crossing the hallway, you'll see a small library office. Besides that, the butler's pantry that has a steep spiral staircase. And then finally on this level, the dining room. If you head upstairs, on the left is the Robert E. Lee bedroom. He stayed in the house for about a week in 1870. He was a good friend to Andrew Low and his
Okay.
family.
Nice.
Yeah. So there's a whole room dedicated to him. It's a beautiful shade of blue. Just a little side note. Next to that is the creepy doll room, aka the nursery.
Oh,
But
excellent.
that's what we call it. Everyone calls it that.
I don't. But that's because I'm afraid they'll come to life. And at least if I don't call them creepy doll room, they might be nice to me. You know?
That makes sense.
They won't
Lizzie's in the
come to
house
haunt
longer.
you.
Yeah, Lizzie's in the house more than I am.
Yeah.
But after the doll room is the William Thackeray room, named after the author who stayed at the house. Then across that is the bathroom, which it has this beautiful copper tub inside of it. I love it so much. And next to that bathroom is the Mary Styles bedroom. And then finally is the gorgeous blue room named after Henry Styles, Mary's father, who stayed at the home and when his wife was taking care of the kids. So that's pretty much the house. It's owned by the National Society of the Colonial Danes of America, and they have been preserving the home since 1928. But that is all the history. Y'all focus on the bumps that go in the night, too. So that's what we'll bring up next.
And we're busy Googling the forte
I had
piano.
to Google the forte piano.
I mean,
so, like,
it's
what
such a
is
cool
that?
instrument when you
It's
really sit down and look at it.
beautiful.
Yeah.
I'll email
That's
you the
it's-
photos
it's
right now of what he's
square.
reading. To begin with, I have no personal experiences or anything to back this up, but it is built on an old jail.
Okay.
Oh,
So there you go.
It might have some spookiness to it. The pianoforte mentioned earlier has no strings inside, but is said to actually have played full melodies during tours, during the day, nights, no matter what time. Despite that, it's being physically impossible. You can still hear
Right.
it being played. Because I've actually heard it a couple times when I'm giving tours, like they'll
Oh,
play like
wow.
a singular note. Where every once in a blue moon, depending on like the time of the year, sometimes it'll play like almost like a bit of a song, but then it'll just like stop.
a short little
I've never heard
portion.
of.
Yeah, it's really cool. But not only myself, but other people that has worked there or who's visited had also claimed to have heard it. Now, footsteps are said to have been heard walking up and down the hallways, but more specifically up and down the butler's pantry.
In the dining room, on my first tour ever, another guy was telling the stories because when you have a certain amount of groups, like amount of people, sometimes the caretaker of the house, the storyteller, will just take over for you. So I was kind of looking at my feet. But all of a sudden, I heard the guest and the guide say, "Did you see that?" And I'm thinking, okay, what's going on? Did something happen? According to them, a spoon fell off a dish and landed perfectly in line with the neatly arranged silverware. But apparently,
Fine.
they moved the silverware
Wow.
That's interesting.
because there's ropes. They're roped off like stanchions, and no one, not even the daytime staff, are allowed to go there unless it's a certain person,
Okay.
and no one would touch it. So when I first got the job, I had no idea what the tour was like, so I took it with a friend. I saw the house, saw the creepy dolls, no ghosts though. But I was coming down the stairs. I jokingly said something mean to the friend, like I'm going to push you down the stairs. But I saw a white mist move past me. The best way for me to describe it is like, you know when you get a paper towel and you dip it in water, you can kind of see through it.
Uh-huh.
That's kind of what I saw, like just like brushed
Weird.
past me. Going up to the bedrooms, I don't recall ever seeing anything in the lead bedroom, but I do remember guests frequently capturing things in the mirrors. In the creepy doll room, I've heard the dolls talk.
Oh, no.
And it's-
Stop it.
I have a photo to send y'all, and it's terrifying. But it sounded like faint wind chimes in a windless house.
Wow.
Weird.
I've also seen photos of their faces change colors and expressions, and it has creeped the life out of me. Your driver the other night showed it to me. He got them, and there's one doll in particular that looks innocent, but her face is kind of like a small little smile. In the photo, it drops. Her skin goes pale white. In the next photo, it is back, and her skin color is back.
Whoa. How the hell did that happen?
That's
Yeah,
creepy.
and-
It happens a lot with that one.
Yeah, she's
She's very expressive.
she
used to
needs
be
to be
another
salted
doll.
and saged.
yeah. There used to be
Burn.
another doll people
Or
were worried about.
you don't want
but
to
it's
burn
her-
anything. That's bad. You
No.
want to burn it. Just salt
There
it,
used to
sage
be
it,
an-
put it in a case.
Yeah, like the Annabelle doll.
Yeah.
But there used to be another doll people were worried about, and they thought she was the problem child. But I really think it's this brunette doll that I was talking about. She's like, yeah, you get the dirty, the people talking trash about you. I don't, but I'm the stickler.
Yeah.
She was
Wow.
trouble.
Yeah.
It's always the brunettes.
Mhm.
Whoa, yeah. The Thackeray bedroom, it's always really giving me weird vibes, but I think it's just because it doesn't have a lot of lights in there. It's just kind of a dark, largely lit room. In Mary's room, I haven't seen anything, but one night I was downstairs waiting for guests to enter when I heard crying, like full on sobbing. Supposedly, it is said that Mary is one of the spirits that haunts the place, which I fully believe, but she is known to cry sometimes. Yet, I've also heard her and Mosiana were good friends, so it could be Mosiana who is also said to haunt the house to be crying. Regardless, I heard someone crying. In the Styles bedroom, I haven't seen anything, but I've had guests report that they have been coughed on, have their clothes pulled, or seen the rocking chair inside of it rock. And one of the reasons I believe Mary's in the house is Miss Mary, Andrew Lowe's second wife, is because she used to supposedly have this rosy perfume that you can sometimes smell, and I've smelled it. And it's it's like an antique rose like perfume scent to it.
Yeah, it's very nice.
It's a very nice smell. But I walked into the butler's pantry one night and I smelled it. So I asked my guests if anyone was wearing a rosy perfume or had a fruity drink. No one did. The next tour in the same location, y'all see I have like short hair, it sticks up. I felt someone like push it down, like brush it down.
Like, I had the same experience, so I know exactly what you're describing.
So I like to think Miss Mary was making sure I looked presentable. Because I look like a little boy. And for a mom, that's probably something you think about. You gotta look good in front of your guests. Come on, sweetie.
That's right.
My favorite instance, and I told you this, is one of my favorites, is I believe Mary told me that she didn't like my tattoos.
Oh.
So I have, if y'all can't see, I have Hellboy.
Okay, yes.
And, he's a comic book character on my right forearm. He's red, has horns, looks scary, looks like the devil. And on my left, I have his friend, who's his coworker, Abe Sapien. He's a fish guy. Looks cool. He has a bleeding hand, and that's it. Well, this night in the house, it was so hot, I had my sleeves rolled up, which I didn't know was not what we were supposed to do, but that's beside the point. But I was telling people to go this way and that, like, look, go to this, follow the tour. I had my phone in my back pocket on a ghost app that was basically a spirit box, but I had the volume off, and I saw the word bled when I checked it. I brushed it off thinking it's nothing. Then I see the word Satan. That is a word that you don't want this house to be associated with, because this house is friendly. So I'm like really confused. I look around, then I realize it's my arms.
Yep.
To a Victorian lady who's never seen a comic book or knows what Hellboy is, a red guy with horns is Satan. Abe on my left arm with the bloody hand, that's blood. So like very quietly, because the tour is going, I explained that these were just pictures of my skin. Now, they mean no harm. They're fictional characters who protect ghosts from bad ghosts, because that's literally what they do. My phone says, mysterious, understood.
Very
I
nice.
was like, woo, we're back on good terms.
Yeah.
Well, at the end of the night, all the tours are over. We're waiting for our ride. I go upstairs and put my phone on the ground, and I hold out my arm saying, if you want to see my tattoos, see what's on my skin, now's your chance. I kid you not. I have the notes of that night. The first word that popped up on my phone was excessive. I think these ghosts were saying I had too many tattoos. Because y'all see, I have quite a bit.
Quite a few.
Yeah.
Yep.
And to a Victorian lady who's like all about properness, you wouldn't want that.
She's clutching her pearls good.
Oh, my.
Yeah.
Well, and a lot of the women who probably would have had tattoos back then would have been ladies of the evening, I'm thinking.
Yeah.
So.
And Miss Mary she was a little bit above that. I don't think she looked down on them, because I don't think Miss Mary I personally believe Miss Mary did not have a bad bone in her body. That's a different part of society that you wouldn't be connected with.
Sure.
But my final experience, and then I'll let Lizzie take over, is one that I take really close to heart, and it happened after I had a rough night. Charlie's can fit about 36 people. I had 12 drunk bridesmaids on my tour, and they were very disrespectful. Loud, talking over the guide, yelling at each other, just not being polite and respectful like you should be in a museum. Because despite being a haunted house, it's a museum first and foremost.
Right.
I ended up kicking them off, and they wanted a refund, and my boss got very upset at me. The tour job was my first job being on my own, living on my own, everything. And now I messed it up. I thought I was going to lose my job. So the next night I'm stationed as ops, which is basically bodyguards the house, making sure people are following the rules, whatnot, keeping time. I tell the portrait of Miss Mary, which I'm going to send y'all, that I might be leaving soon. But I might be losing my job, but I wanted to say thank you for everything. But also, letting me see and experience everything I've seen in the house. I didn't mention it, but I've seen a little kid run through the walls. I've heard the dolls talk. I've had Mr. Millage point out people who were breaking the rules. They didn't have to do that. They didn't have to show me that, but they did. So I said thank you. The house was hot that night, but I felt a cold feeling on my back and around my waist, like someone was coming up behind me giving me a hug, letting me know everything was going to be okay. A few days later, however, my appendix burst, and I was out of work for about 3 weeks. The house I live in, I live alone, but during that time my mom came up and stayed with me. But I had dreams of the Andrew Low house. I was drugged up, and I don't really dream, not often. And I think if I were drugged up and dreaming, it would be something crazy. Like some absurd, like, rainbow cat deal. I dreamt of the Andrew Low house. So I like to think the spirits, either Miss Mary or maybe Miss Mosiana, saw how much I treated them like a family, so they made sure I was treated like family too. When I came back to the
Nice. I love
house,
that.
when I came back to the house the next night after I was repaired and better, I just told them thank you. Thank you for making me feel like a family. But that's my experiences. So we have this house. Every haunting is different for everybody. So I want Lizzie to share some of our friends' experience, but also her own experience, if that's okay.
That would be great.
Yeah.
All right. Now I'm going to start off with my own personal experience because I got a top 2 story. Now, the first story, I'm going to tell you the more scary part of it all. So this is like literally right when I just got done like certifying and started my job and stuff like that. And so I was still fairly new at my job. And I ended up getting on this one trolley, which I now have like beef with this trolley, first of all. But it broke down. And I was like, okay, I know scripts. I can keep up. We got this. And for some reason, the driver that I had was like limping it over to the house instead of just stopping and letting us get onto a new trolley. And we eventually, on the trolley that's broke down at the Angelo house. And let's just say, luckily enough, I had a small enough group that I was able to take them all to the caretaker. So I'm stressed. And for us guides, of course, the only bathroom to like reset yourself and stuff is in the very dark and creepy basements.
Oh no.
Now, the bathroom I went in, the fan doesn't work. It literally, if you turn on that fan, it sounds like you're killing a chicken because all you hear is,
Oh,
It's terrifying.
it's terrifying. It's still like that, by the way. Just to let you know. I'm not thinking anything of it. I'm not even using the fan. It's not a big deal. So as soon as I get up from the commode, suddenly though, the light turns off and the fan turns on. Obviously, this is a one-person use bathroom. So, of course, I'm standing there. I'm swinging my right arm as if this is going to do something. Like, I'm sure the entity's standing there going, this tickles. And I'm slapping my other arm onto the wall trying to find the light switch. Of course, I turn on the light, turn off the fan, and I go, oh, wow, that was crazy. Time to wash my hands because I am not an animal. Hygiene is very important to me. And after that, I walk out of the room. And as soon as I go to make my first initial step up the stairs, I hear a cacophony of footsteps running up behind me.
oh no.
So my big self noped my way right up those stairs. And as soon as I get to the top, I go, oh no, I forgot to turn off the lights downstairs. But as soon as I went to make the turn to go down the stairs, all the lights turn off all at once. I went, oh,
That's
no,
a big
thank you.
nope. That's a
Yeah.
bigger nope than the other nope.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what, and all this like paranormal stuff that happens there is that bad. Like, actually, I have a pretty wholesome story as well that I'd like to share. So, Miss Mary, when she was alive, she was very much musically inclined. And there was one evening I was, working inside the house as one of the ops. And we had this one procedure a while back ago where basically as one of the ops, you can kind of like be inside the house to direct people where to go. And I, for some reason, while I was inside the house by myself, because both my other coworkers are outside getting groups split up, I had the song Lavender Blue just randomly going through my head. I don't know why. So, of course, I just start humming it, not thinking. And the next thing I know, I start hearing a woman behind me humming along with me. I immediately stop and I'm like, hello? And it was one of the creepiest parts about the story is that the song kind of continued and then it like stopped shortly after. And I'm looking around frantically. There's no one there. It's just me. And then once I told my boss this story, he goes, oh, it was probably Mary because she was so musically inclined in life. And I'm like, well, that makes me feel better that she likes my presence enough that she wanted to do a sing along.
Yeah.
But at the same time,
She's a good spirit.
she is. She really is.
Whenever I visit that house, even when I didn't work there and I took a tour, I see that photo of Miss Mary. I have to say, hey, Miss Mary. And even when I leave, I got to say, bye, Miss Mary. Have a good night.
Yeah, she's a good
Love
one.
it.
She's like your mom you didn't know you need.
Yeah. Aw.
I wanted to ask you really quick because you've been talking about people who were enslaved who worked there and then stayed on afterward as servants. This wasn't like a plantation that had cabins on the property. So did all of the enslaved and the servants live in the house too then?
So there's the house in the back. There's a small courtyard, and in the back there's a carriage house.
Okay.
I don't know how true this is. You would have to ask the museum. I didn't think about asking them, but I think the carriage house was probably split as an enslaved quarters as well, unless
Okay.
they lived somewhere else. Because you would need somewhere like your servants, like who are doing your food and whatnot, you would need them pretty close by, and that's
Right.
not a far walk at all.
Right.
It's in the same. You can see the house and the carriage house from each other.
Okay.
So
Yeah, I know a lot of the
down in
time, sometimes they'd have them on the upstairs while the carriages were on the ground floor.
Lizzie actually just made a good connection. Forget what I said about the carriage house. Lizzie
Okay.
had the right answer.
So down in the basement, because of course there is a basement, as I told you in the last story. Used to back in the day, it was actually servants' quarters as well as the kitchens as well.
Okay.
The reason why we don't think about it now is because now it's like offices and archives.
That's
and
why I
how it's
wasn't
set up.
thinking
It's
that.
like this wasn't a kitchen, like it's
Right.
so changed now. So it's like I get why Bailey didn't
I didn't
make
connect the
that
dots
connection.
first.
Yeah, like I'm sure probably back then there was probably like a secondary station for
Like a bigger house, maybe if they had more people, but
yeah.
considering that it seemed to be only like 2 or 3 people at the time,
I think it was just more in the basement
yeah.
area.
and it is a
Okay.
pretty decent sized basement. It's about the same size of the house, just down in the lower level.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. What are the grounds like? In
do you mean?
terms of the grounds of the house, in terms of
She was talking
any.
about how the gardens are really gorgeous and stuff.
Yeah. So I mean,
right.
but can you expound? I'm big into gardening, so I'm just like wanting a little
Yeah.
bit more information.
So basically, in the front portion of the house that's facing Lafayette Square, they have this very large, elaborate garden. So, like, I think during the day you can walk through it and stuff like that. And they have a bunch of flowers. I think there's like 2 trees, there's bushes and stuff like that. I believe there's like
It's kind of like
it's like a small fountain in the
looks
middle
like
too.
like how people have the short mazes where you can see above everything, but it has a certain path. It's like that. I
Yeah.
have a photo I want to
Nice.
send.
Yeah. Oh, there's
love that.
not. Oh, yeah, there is a fountain. No, there's
There's
not.
there's 2 like potted plants.
Potted plants. It's nighttime when I see this. I thought the potted plants were fountains.
That's okay.
That's my bad. That makes sense why I wasn't hearing rushing noises of water.
Oh yeah. So that's the one that we saw, because we couldn't go past the fencing when we were there, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
So I always just wondered, it's like just what's just beyond, and I don't think that we were able to see much right out in the very front, but I love that.
Yeah, it's really beautiful, especially during the day.
Yeah.
I don't get to go by there during the day, but every once in a blue moon I drive past. I'm like, oh yes.
I know that house.
Yeah. But-
We need to be there when you can actually tour it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
That's been the problem.
Yeah. Probably when did y'all come down last time?
I don't know. Was
No,
it
it was a
2
really
years
quick
ago?
jaunt through, and we
Three-
pretty
I
much
mean-
ran through it because we had our son with us, and we just wanted
Yeah.
to hit all the highlights and show him what a square looked like.
Basically.
It may have been the time where they closed just to do a house cleanup. So,
Probably.
but we have one little bit last more to share with y'all.
Yeah, you have
Okay.
some friends who've had some experiences. huh?
Yeah. So I'm going to start off with our good friend Aaron. Now, Aaron and 2 other guides heard someone knocking on the front door during a storm, which sounds like cliche of any scary movie, but I'm just saying this is what happened. Now, another time she was standing in the butler's pantry, which was a walkway above where the guides stand.
There's the stairs go up, and then there's a balcony above, and the guide stands like right below the balcony.
Okay.
And so a guest asked, who's the lady in blue dress, and was pointing above Aaron. Now, Aaron asked who she was talking about, and the guest said the lady standing on the steps. Now, Miss Mary is notoriously known for her beautiful blue dress, which is usually seen in the portrait that you'd see in the informal side of the
Yeah.
parlor.
I shared it with y'all. That famous blue dress that y'all saw, that is
Yeah.
typically what people see her in.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that's
Okay.
what a guest was witnessing. They were sitting Mary on the steps.
Yeah, 'cause she usually likes to hang out in there, but she also likes to hang out in the dining room because she'll like stand in this one corner, almost like she's like hosting something.
Yeah.
I've seen her a lot
Cool.
in that corner. But another friend of ours, Tori. Now, Tori was in her first ops position. Yep, that's it. That's
Yep.
the one.
Beautiful lady.
But yeah, Tori was in her first ops position doing the inspection when the caretaker, the house guide, ran up to her panicking. Now, the tour guide asked if Tori was okay, to which Tori said, yeah, are you okay? The tour guide then said She wanted Tori out of the room as quickly as possible because she saw a lady in a black dress storm after Tori with a look of absolute rage. Now, 6 months pass, and the tour guide is gone, and Tori becomes manager. It's around Christmas time. Manager duties involve taking pictures of the house at the end of the night. So that's what Tori was doing. She takes a picture and looks at it. And behind her, sure enough, because I will
Sent y'all the picture. I think in your email you got it.
yeah, Bailey will share the picture. There is a woman in a black dress standing behind her. The people working with her were all men that night, and I have no idea who the lady in black could be, possibly.
Yeah. And it's one of the creepiest photos I've ever seen.
I remember Tori showing me that photo. I'm like,
Yeah.
I don't like that. Now, another person named Lucy. Now, Lucy was working as caretaker, meaning they kind of like a secondary guide for the house who tell the stories and stuff. Now, when the touring group is too big, the group, of course, gets split into two. The main guide and the caretaker, they have been in the house for maybe 10 minutes, and the manager has already done their job, and they left to go work on River Street. Now, Lucy is seated at the bottom of the stairs talking to the ops when all of a sudden they hear a loud knocking noise. It was repetitive and sounded like someone knocking on wood. Then Lucy and the ops initially think it's one of the daytime staff downstairs trying to be let in on the side door downstairs. Now, Lucy and the ops keep talking, but then the sound gets louder and sounds like it's getting near them. They both pause and look. In the center of the hallway is a huge grandfather clock, a beautiful piece, but the bottom door of the clock is opening and closing, rattling back and forth. It wasn't coming all the way open, but it was enough to make a noise. They stare at the clock and then it just stops. They both turn to look at each other, kind of just like, what the hell?
So it was like something was trying to get out of the clock.
Yeah. Or just trying to get the attention drawn to
yeah.
it. Yeah.
I don't
Wow.
know. That clock has always done really weird things.
Yeah, that clock gets hand wound every day. It's an old, like, I think every 2 days is an old clock.
Yeah.
I love that though. I love that it's still working.
Oh yeah, and when it
That's
rings
awesome.
when it rings at like 8, 11 o'clock at night, scariest thing.
Yeah. I don't know why
Yeah.
it is around 8, around 8, it becomes very aggressive for no reason. It's like, ma'am, this is a Wendy's.
Yeah.
Now, of course, with any paranormal experience, you can try to debunk it. So they think maybe some part of the mechanical aspect of the clock too came loose and was rattling the gears, which caused the door to rattle. The one thing about the clock, of course, as Bailey just said, it gets round every 2 days. So, yeah, Lucy has never heard it happening to anyone else or seen it happen again, but she swears it seems as if someone or something was again trying to get out of that grandfather clock. So, yeah, Lucy has seen some things.
Yeah, Lucy has some
I
things.
guess.
Now, of course, this one's a dear friend of mine, Vanessa. Now, Vanessa was actually standing in the butler's pantry telling her guests the story of the butler's pantry ghost. But then footsteps are heard
That's
walk.
the story of the ghost. The butler's pantry story is like footsteps are heard walking around when no one is in the house, but some no-nonsense ladies heard it and they're like thinking, it's not a ghost, it's someone logical. It was a ghost.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I was about to complicate it, but it's okay. Now, when she feels all the hair on the back of her neck stand up as if someone was standing very close to her. But before Vanessa could turn around, the group of guests all just gasped and screamed. She turns around, nothing.
Wow.
But that's also not the first time her group has done that to her, not just inside the house. But Vanessa also used to work for our other trolley tour. And the second stop was like the Colonial Park Cemetery. And she would tell the story about like a Mr. Baker story. And
He's a guy, he got beaten up in the cemetery.
yeah, and he haunts the cemetery. There was one time she was telling that story, and sure enough, Mr. Baker just showed up behind her, and no one said anything. They just went click, 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 click. And I was like,
That's
poor
never
Vanessa's
good.
the one getting sacrificed to the ghost for no reason.
Well, I've heard that story so many times from tour guides when they're like, yeah, I was telling the story. And then all of a sudden I noticed that my tour group, like their faces all went, and I was like, I don't want to turn around and see what's behind me.
Yeah. But that was the last story. But as you can tell, the Andrew Load is not a simple, oh, if there's kids walking through the walls, the dolls talk. It's something different for every person. And I think that's what kind of makes it so unique. And that's what this was such a fun episode to do, because it was a personal, it has my first ghost experience and also some of Lizzie's, but it just holds a deep, with the spirits are so friendly. It just holds a deep part in your heart.
Yeah.
And
We
there's so
definitely-
many different ones there that are manifesting in different ways.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Some that we don't even know about.
We need to get there. We
Yeah.
need to get inside that.
Now,
And
do they ever let people investigate there? Or
Unfortunately
No.
not, no.
The colonial dames are very, very amazing women, but they have certain rules they have to follow for their society and whatnot. And also keep the museum up and running, and also keep the feng shui of it all.
Yeah, that's true. You don't want to bring stuff in that's not already there.
Yeah, and people have, and the house is not like it.
No.
Gotcha.
It's like literally there's times where, sometimes people have a ghost that follows them.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes that ghost goes, man, this is nice. I think I want to stay here. And you can just feel the disturbance of the force.
Yeah.
And I just know it's either Mary, Mosiana, or Mr. Milch going, no, you get out of here.
out. Kind of
Keeps
like
taking-
that. Get off my lawn.
Yeah.
Speaking of the outdoors, I just saw that other picture, Bailey, that you sent. That's
the
taken,
garden.
the garden, but taken like from the front steps, facing
Beautiful.
down. Gorgeous. Not
Mhm.
anything that I was able to appreciate from the outer gate sidewalk area.
That
So
was one of the
beautiful.
last photos I took of the house when I was touring there. And I'm like, I never get to see this. I'm going to take advantage of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love it
beautiful.
so much. And just to
Absolutely
think that
beautiful.
Juliette, like, she sat up those stairs and probably sat on those steps and just enjoyed the view.
Yeah,
It just kind of has a nice, like, peaceful vibe to it.
definitely.
Yeah, and you can see the lions there at the bottom of the stairs too, just the
Yeah.
top of their
Yeah.
manes. It's very cool.
I heard a story. I don't know how true it is, but I want to believe it because it's cute. Juliette would used to pet the lion's manes, but now they have sad faces on it because she's not there anymore.
Oh.
Yeah. But I don't know how true that is, but it sounds like something Juliette would do. She loved animals.
All right, Lizzie, you need to go pet their manes.
All right. Just go ahead and break the rules.
Yeah.
They're like, don't touch anything.
Don't
Next
touch
thing we know,
anything.
Lizzie's fired. What happened?
It's like
She was
all
petting the lion.
smooth in this one area.
Yeah.
One head.
Oh, no, I actually technically had to break a rule, but it was for the greater good. I had this
Now you
one-
are admitting this.
Yeah, be
I am,
careful.
I am
On a
admitting this,
recording,
but
right?
also it's already documented, so it's
Oh.
fine. I had this one guest on my trolley who very much spirited, if I shall say. And he was like, I'm not feeling well inside the house. Do you mind I stand out in the courtyard? I'm like, yeah, that's fine. Just stay out there, get some fresh air, whatever. And next thing I know, I look out the window of towards the garden, and there's just a man standing in the middle of it. I'm like,
In the front yard?
yeah, in the front yard. I'm like, oh my God, it's the guy. So I run outside around the building because, of course, I couldn't go through the front doors. And I had to scold this man going, please get out of here. And he's like, oh, it's so beautiful. I'm like, there's no lights out. If you fall, that's on me.
Yeah.
And when you
It
said
was
he
like
was
a whole thing.
spirited, I thought that maybe he consumed some spirits, and I thought you were going to say a whole nother thing about
Oh,
him
yeah,
being outside.
he was full of those kind of
Oh,
spirits. Yes,
okay,
but yeah, he was
okay.
just like
I'm
he was
like,
very
what
much
is he doing to that beautiful garden?
He's
I
a
don't
happy.
wanna
He's
think
a happy
about-
spirit.
he was very
There you
much
go.
oh, yes, garden. Yeah, just taking in the whiffs. Like he did. He was like smelling the flowers. I'm like, as much as I appreciate you're not destroying this, you need to leave.
Yeah.
Well, at least
Please.
he didn't lose his spirits in that beautiful garden.
No.
Yeah, thank
Because
God.
that's where my head went.
Yeah.
Wow,
That's
what a
perfect.
fabulous place. Thank you so much for sharing it with
Yeah,
us.
thank you
for
guys.
letting us. And thank you for the museum, of course, too.
Yes,
Yes,
absolutely.
definitely.
And I think it's great that even though they don't have people who investigate there, that they're, not like, don't mention that we have some ghosts here. Because some places, are real worried about getting that word out. And
Right.
There's some places like that in Savannah. It's like I know you're haunted. Just the ground you look, the way you look is haunted. But they're like, nope, we're perfectly fine here. No spirits. It's like
Mhm.
it's okay. You can
And
admit
it helps with tourism, really.
It does, yeah.
But
Well,
It's
and
not
it's
for
Savannah.
everybody.
Pretty much
Yeah.
everywhere is
Yeah.
haunted.
yeah.
Yeah, we're like New Orleans.
Yeah.
Exactly. I mean, you just walk into the city and you could
You
just
could feel it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us. And we look forward to hooking up with you guys again in the future. We'd love to do some investigating again. We had a lot of fun with you.
So fun.
I know some places here in Savannah that's really fun to investigate. So if y'all ever come this way, we can do it.
Very cool.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
The Andrew Low house is beautiful and has some very cool items inside. Could there be ghosts inside as well? Is the Andrew Low house haunted?
That is for you to decide. Well, sounds like a great place for us to check out next time we're in Savannah.
Yep, we've only had the opportunity to view it from the front, so I definitely want to get inside that thing.
Yeah, we've definitely been on the outside. It's a very cool looking house. And it has a lot of great stuff inside of it, it sounds like. I mean, that forte piano or pianoforte, I don't know the
yes.
technical term, but it's a big square, like the top of the piano. It's just so unique. I've never seen anything like it. And we'll put some pictures up on Instagram so you guys can see some of the stuff we were talking about. We encourage you guys to check out our website at historygoesbump.com. And if you'd like to send us some feedback, you can do that at historygoesbump@gmail.com. One of our listeners wrote us, Kelly Matt, and he said, "Are you aware of the television show Scariest House in America?" And we have not heard of this. Apparently it's available on Hulu and HGTV. There's a host named Rita, and she visits haunted houses in the U.S.
We'll have to check that out.
Check it out.
Thank you.
Thanks for sharing that with us, Matt. Want to thank you guys for tuning into this episode. I've been your host, Diane.
And this has been Kelly.
You take care now. Bye-bye. This episode is brought to you by our executive producers.
Dispatches from the Grave Digger.
We want to thank Bill Richardson for raising his contribution. We're going to be moving him into a chest tomb. Michael Thompson raised his donation. We're going to move him into a chest tomb as well. And welcome into the cemetery, Sam Reynolds will be putting you in a chest tomb. Mort has a lot of work this week.
Thank you so much for supporting History Goes Bump. We really could not create this show without our executive producers.
Be sociable. Drop the chain rattling, neck biting, and shape shifting, and join us on Facebook and Twitter at History Goes Bump. Like the page and follow us.